Hello, and welcome back to another Minecraft Let's Play video with me, Elven Dragon. So last episode we went and returned to our main set of areas and got ourselves a few of the things that we discovered while out on our island. Specifically, we got ourselves a happy gas, we got ourselves some pale garden stuff, and since then we've basically been using our happy gas here to put vines up on our biosphere tower. Now, as you can tell, we haven't gotten them all the way up to the top yet. And that's because I want to get the next few spheres marked out as to where they're going to be going. And for that, we have a slight bit of difficulty with that. We know what levels they're going to be on, where they're going to be on the tower. What we don't know is where exactly the spheres are going to be, because we have 16 spheres on this tower already, which means that we already have all of the spaces directly out and diagonal from our tower here already filled in out to 2 chunks away from the tower, which means we have 2 options. We can either go out to 3 chunks, which might be a little excessive, but would mean that our entryways and our bridges would be fairly easy to figure out. Or we can try and do a slightly more complicated diagonal bridge and use some of the chunks in between where our spheres are currently. So I've already gone and broken our tower here, where we're going to need our first bit of our walkway here. So we are going to need a few spaces here to kind of bring that out and around. And then we'll be able to bring this out to our eventual spot. So we'll have to go and figure out the exact angle that we need to get for this. Now, we have one small problem with this, in that our little armor stand pack that we've been using to find our chunk borders no longer works. Or at least the chunk border part of it no longer seems to work. So we are going to have a little bit of difficulty with that. But we'll figure that out. We should just be able to use the coordinates from our 2 spheres over here, which would be our ocean sphere and our plain sphere. Those should be bordering where we're going to put this sphere. So I'm going to go ahead and get our walkway set up and marked out, and then I'll be back. All right, so the walkway is a little janky in some parts here. We may have to do some work on the stairs, but we have the basic row of our sphere in. We just need to go ahead and build up the rest of this, which we already have a pattern marked out here from our other spheres, so we can go ahead and get that set up. So I've got stone here to mark out our junctions here. I'm going to leave that. We're actually going to use that as our blocks for transforming into pale moss. Since this is going to be our pale oak sphere, we might as well use something that we can turn into pale moss. Then we don't have to take this out. So I guess that means we just need to get this bottom half of the sphere in. Maybe get something kind of marked out for how I want to get this set up. And then we'll be right back. All right, so I've gone and gotten at least the basics of our sphere here in. So we've got our pale moss fully in place. Got a couple pale oak saplings placed down to grow up a few trees. I want to see if we can get some of these just naturally and then carve them to match the sphere before we try making some custom ones. And I decided, why not add a second biome in here and just put in a dark oak forest as well. So we've got a few eye blossoms in here just for some decoration. We pretty much left all of the moss that we had. So we'll have to go ahead and play around with that. We can definitely grow up some of the ones along the edge here to 2 height. But all in all, I'm quite happy with how this is turning out. We just have to wait for these to grow up, or force them to grow up here. We don't have a whole lot of bone meal, but we can try to use some of it to grow one up. There we go. There's one of them. And then we can start adding in the hanging pale moss. So I'm going to go get the top half of the sphere in, and then I'll be right back. All right. So we have all 3 trees growing up and most of the roof in. So I'm missing some stuff at the very top, mostly because we couldn't get up there easily because our ghast hasn't exactly been playing nice with us being able to jump on. But I figured it'd be nice to look at this thing at night when we have all the eye blossoms open. And I really like how that looks. Might have to get a couple more of them for in here. But I really like how this whole sphere looks. Now we went for a gray top for our spheres. This one, since I figured gray would match our pale oak and would look really nice. So I figured if our ground is gray, our trees are gray, we might as well have our roof be gray as well. But with this in, that just leaves a couple more things. Namely, we need to get in our hanging moss. I'm just going to kind of place that down a few spots and then we'll use our bone meal to grow it up. But I really like this stuff. I think this will be really nice. And all in all, I'm quite happy with how the sphere has turned out. Now we still have a couple more things to do on the outside as well, but we need to wait for our gas to actually drop down far enough for us to actually do that. But another thing that I want to do is we found this creaking heart out there. So I figured we might as well kind of keep this matching our actual biome here, and we'll put one in. So let's go ahead and stick that in there. That is now growing, and oh, okay. Apparently that is connected to that, as we kind of already knew, and apparently that can spawn on the glass. Well, I would have liked for it to spawn inside the sphere, but okay. I guess this is better for the first time than it spawning in here and attacking us and us having to scramble for the doorway. But I was not expecting it to be able to spawn on top of the glass. Pretty sure most stuff can't spawn on top of glass anyway. It's definitely interesting. We need to make sure we take out this creeper here. There we go. But that's very interesting. So we definitely have to go do something with that. Yeah. It would be better if it was actually inside the sphere, because we do need to do stuff on top there. We'll go ahead and head down and sleep, and then we'll be able to take care of some of the stuff on top, hopefully. Alright, just our luck, he's gone, and we can go ahead and just break this, because our gas is not playing nice. So, what we need to do is, one, make sure we have all of our glass for up here. Two, finish off the top. Now, we have a little bit of blue glass here as well, because we have a few spots that we need to go ahead and put in. Hi, Gast! Thank you for dropping by now. I also don't know why it's not wanting to place some of our glass here on top. It's kind of weird. But anyway, as I was saying, we have a few spots that we need to go ahead and put some blue on the outside here, just as a bit of decoration. So go ahead and go from here and bring that down just a little bit here. We're just going to stick this on the outside of our sphere. I want to keep the main base as our light gray. I think that block there needs to go up a little bit. This is supposed to bulge out a little bit from what I was thinking here. Yeah, there we go. And I think we do that. That should be good. We'll just have to mirror that on the other side here. That will complete our 17th biosphere, which I believe is the first one to have 2 biomes. So I believe all the rest of these are just 1. Oh, actually, no. Be the third to have 2 biomes, because we have the mangrove swamp in our swamp one, and then we put the warped and crimson forest in the nether one. It's not something we do a whole lot here, so I'm quite happy with how this has turned out. I believe this might be the only sphere that has a biome that doesn't have a mob for it, mostly because there isn't really one for the dark oak forest specific for it. And now the swamp sphere has the frogs in it for the mangrove swamp and the regular swamp, because we get those spawning over in the ruined village now. But if we find where our gas has gone off to, watch, it'll be below the sphere now, because we're up here. We should be able to get a good view and see how this looks. Oh, look at that. There it is. So let's try and glide down here and catch it. Try not to crash into it. I've done that a couple times. But if we hop on that, we can start our very slow ascent up to the height of our sphere. This thing was a really big help in building up the bottom of the sphere, though. It went a lot smoother than normal. Mostly because I didn't have to deal with picking up all the scaffolding at the end. And there we go! 1 Hill Garden sphere. I really like it. I think that turned out well. I might have to move the little blue spots down a little bit, but I think that turned out really well. I like how we have the little bit of dark oak there, kind of like this is fading in. And I'm hoping that with the creaking and the eye blossoms in there, it'll be really nice to have this one kind of have some day-night life changes, and just the shift between the two sides of it, I think will be really nice. Now, hopefully the creaking spawns in the sphere and not on the glass outside, but there's not really any way for us to prevent that. At least I don't think there is. We may have to experiment. The only thing I'd really be willing to put on top of this thing would be glow lichen. And I think that would look a little weird on top of the glass, considering it's not on any of our other spheres. So I think that is probably the best that we're going to be able to do. Definitely need to do something about these stairs, though. These are not really the right shapes for these stairs. So I'll have to play around with the shaping of those. But all in all, I'm really liking how this is going. Which means we now have another large section to get for vines. Since before we only went up to where the top of the tower used to be at the old building height. Looks like we might be able to fit one, maybe two if we squeeze it in right below the giant sphere on top. So we still have a little bit of work to do on this tower, but man, I'm quite happy that we have this now in. But that planning is going to have to wait for another time. But now, again, I just want to get the vines up for where we have our spheres now, because again, we have to figure out which side, what direction we're going to put these in. Fortunately, we're not going to be able to fill in all of the areas in the two chunks around this tower. Maybe if they put it up again, or we might even be able to squeeze them in farther down the tower, depending on where these all fit. Because we do have some large gaps in some areas here. But for now, I think that that is probably going to be about it for today. So I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and consider subscribing if you want to see more of what is going on this world. And I will catch you all in the next one. Goodbye.